Hello, and welcome to Manavutsav's event today. My name is Kamala Patni. I'm the founder of Celebrate Our Similarities, stands for CAUS, as you can probably see behind me. We're very proud to be hosting this event for Manavutsav during the South Asian Heritage Month. So we're looking at various activities during this whole month. And today we've got Keval from ACIM UK today, and I'm very proud to be hosting this event. So what I'll do is I'll just introduce you to Keval, and I'll let you know about CAUS maybe towards the end, and we can just, when we round things off. So Keval?
Hi, how are you today?
Hi, good evening. You just got home from work, or have you been working from home today?
Working from home, yeah. Got a project with the NCS at the moment, so we're working with about 1,000 youth over this summer, so yeah, been very busy.
Oh, I'd like to talk to you about that later, actually, because I'm quite interested in that. So welcome to the Manavutsav today. It's a pleasure to have you on board today, and we'll talk about, various issues around ACIM. But before we start, about talking about ACIM, if you could tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your interests about making change happen, and whatever that you'd like to share.
Yeah, and and likewise, thank you for giving us a platform. We're a new charity, so any connections that we're making at the moment, any platforms we're being given, we really do appreciate it. So thank you to Manavutsav and to you especially, and to Dr. Indrani as well. So as you know, my name's Keval. The reason why I started ACIM is partly to do with my past life, but also what I feel is really needed in today's society and in today's community. So it happened a few years ago, and I would say the idea, the seed for the idea has been there from ever since I visited India back in 98, 99. It was an unfortunate time. A monsoon had happened, and in Bombay, where we were, Mumbai, there was a slum area which got washed away, quite a lot of damage. Just being outside, we were there as tourists, and I was very young at the time, but I saw young children obviously asking for money and needing food, and just through talk got to speak to them about school and education. And I noticed already, even at their age, without any real education in terms of what we would consider the type of curriculum we have here in the setup here in England, in India at that time, in Mumbai, and especially from the area where there was that much deprivation, I think it really struck a chord with me. And from that point, I really felt I needed to do more to help the future, the new generation, and the people will be inheriting this world from us. So speaking to these children, I understood that the school, it was a volunteer teacher who, after work, he would come and they would set up like a stall with a few poles, and it was a corrugated roof. Very simple, things that we probably chuck away in our skip or something. They'd turned it into a shelter area where they had a little blackboard. And through that, from what I saw and what they were learning was absolutely incredible. Their enthusiasm, their passion for just learning and becoming better people, and their dreams and ambitions, even though they understood the position they were in. When we spoke to them, the doctor, engineer, lawyer, and they knew what they were talking about as well. And they were aged probably between 8 to 12, 8 to 13, that group of children that I was speaking to. And so from there, I always had an interest. And at that time, I was in a very, I guess, a negative part of my life. I was involved in a lot of bad things that I regretfully now I talk about, but with great a heavy heart, because I know ultimately I should have known better than to do those things in the first place, and that's what really gets to me personally. But you know, I was in a position, I did certain things, and which I'm not proud of at all. And some of the situations, the reason I don't talk about them is because I don't want any aspect of glorifying any of this type of behavior. I know that a lot of people who live that type of lifestyle, they do change their lifestyle, and as they go on to try and help people, they talk about their past life experiences, and sometimes I think it tends to glorify, you know, it gives people the impression that you can do those things and yet still come out and be, you know, and I don't want people to have that type of impression. Sometimes you enter that lifestyle and there's no coming back from it. There's permanent implications, you know, whether it's with your career, whether it's with family, or worse still, whether it's with losing people, which unfortunately, you know, I've had to experience all of that. And through my own I understood that what my parents had brought me up to be, what I'd learned in my life, and the things I'd seen, the people, like I said, these experiences in India, it wasn't just this group of children, but, you know, that had a big part to play. And helping them to rebuild that school and using the bit of funds that I had, which I was going to use for my holiday, to do that. At that time, there wasn't really things like emails and you know, the internet in 97, 98, it wasn't set up the way it is now. And even if it was, they wouldn't have had access to it. But a few years later, I was very lucky to receive a phone call. I'd left a number that they could contact us on in England, and someone let me know that these people have been calling for, you know, every few months, and we just thought it's a prank call or something. They sound like, yeah. And funnily enough, I thought, hang on, I have given this number to someone before. Let me just call them back and see. So, you know, I called the number, I'd missed them, and through a bit of miscommunication or missing each other, we ended up talking, and they said, you know what, the kids still remember you. They're so happy, and they want to dedicate, you know, what they're doing in their education to you. And I said, look, I'm not in a position to take any type of credit for that. That's not, you know, that's down to them. And genuinely, the things I've done up to that point, if you think about like a bank balance, something very simple as an analogy, in life and in society or the community, I've always been in debt, and I'm using my overdraft as we speak. You know, I still owe a lot to society, and I don't deserve any credit for any work I've done or what I'm about to do either. It's about teaching people to live a better life. And for me especially, I felt I had a lot more to give. So, you know, I'd come back from India, I'd had personal experiences, I'd left a certain lifestyle, and I built a career path. And through that, then I was kind of fortunate enough where a certain break in this career and certain things led to something. And I just decided, if I'm going to do something, I need to do it now. And so Ekyam was born. Ekyam is a Sanskrit word. There's no exact translation in English, but in Sanskrit, the meanings that it would be used for is harmonious living, unity, being unanimous, collectivism, and collectivism over individualism, which is, you know, part of our dharmic principles, which again on the tag for our Ekyam UK, collectivism over individualism. Now, as a charity, we don't preach or teach any religion at all. We're not prescribed to any type of BAME or any type of criteria or anything like that. We focused on helping anyone who is 8 to 24 years old, regardless of what the issue may be. So we help with things like mental health, with online bullying, with racism. More recently, a lot of issues about domestic abuse and domestic violence, or youth, even maybe not being the victim of it, but experiencing it within the household. And so there's, you know, after effects to this. And so we've noticed a big rise in that during COVID. Help with things like gang culture, knife crime, and when I said grooming, not only, I think some people automatically relate it back to the sexual grooming and what was covered in the media, but in fact, there's grooming used in all parts of our lives, when it comes to drugs, when it comes to the gangs, when it comes to the fraud that they're doing, the scams, whether it's holding knives, whether it's holding drugs for someone and slowly enticing someone into a lifestyle. There's a lot of grooming out there, and it's very unfortunate because our children aren't even left to be children anymore with all the exposure of social media that they've got on top of the life that we're providing them in this outside world when they are allowed out. It's just there's a lot of negative stuff happening. So although Ekiam UK deal with this, what I've always tried to preach and say is that that's only 49% of it. Although we help a lot of youth with, say, for instance, if I was helping someone who was involved in a gang, they might be spending anywhere up to 2-3 hours a day, up to 12, 14, 16 hours a day with some of these people, or sometimes they actually all move together and live together. They've left their family home at the age of 16, 17, and by that point they're in that lifestyle fully. So when you're spending that much time, once you come out of it, you need to replace it. And that's why I say 49% of it is dealing with the issues. But I want everyone to remember that Ekiam UK, 51% of it is about providing a positive alternative to that person, giving them opportunities and helping them integrate themselves and becoming a positive member of our society and our community, being able to add to the community, and even if not being able to add to it, at least not taking away from it or helping in the destruction of it. So we work with a lot of organizations like yourselves, Manav Utsav, and through all the other network meetings you've probably seen us on, you'll see that we've got connections with South Asian Health Action, and there's quite a lot to mention. So celebrating our similarities as well, obviously that's a massive one for us. I've learned a lot from that myself. So from a personal level, and also from the point of the view from the charity, we really appreciate these networks, because what it does is it helps people to understand that we're trying to find opportunities for the people that we work with, and sometimes they're interested in maybe sometimes just even volunteer work to go into that circle and to build up their profile within that arena, and then they can move on to something later on. But we've helped people get into full-time education. We've helped people with university applications who previously saw they had no opportunities. And although very small achievements, we're making progress, but we really hope to start making some big steps over the next 24, 36 months.
That's fantastic. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying about this, collectivism instead of individualism. I think the time has come, and especially with COVID, people, generally speaking, are realizing that without working together, we really are on a steeper slippery slope than we were before. And how do we turn things around? And cause Celebrate Our Similarities is very similar to, we're also not about any particular, we're very inclusive and want to make change happen. And, we want to work with and collaborate with organizations like yourselves. You answered my second question, what does it stand for? Obviously, oneness, and, very similar to what we think. So when you decided to set up then as an organization, so you're set up as a charity, yes?
That's right.
Yeah. So are you registered with the Charities Commission at this stage, or are you applying for it?
No, we've applied. In fact, I was told when I was setting this up, it's impossible to set it up as an individual. You need trustees, etc. And so I had to find the right network. I had to find, first of all, before I can even start helping the youth, I had to find the right people. And with Charities Commission, they have to be over 18, and there's criteria. So even
who else is involved then?
Sorry?
So who else is involved in the organization? So are they individuals or organizations?
No, it's just individuals. We started off, and like I said, I had to find a network. I was very, very fortunate to find some great people, especially our larger network that reach all the way from down in London all the way up to Glasgow. Some amazing people that I've connected with, but more importantly, here in Leicester, where we wanted to build our mainframe, it was very important to me that I can work with the trustees on a daily basis. So I found, to be fair, there was a lot of people that could have been a trustee, but the way that we needed to set it up and having 3 trustees, the 3 people that ultimately took on the roles were Kirit Mistry, who represents SAHA, South Asian Health Action. He has been absolutely amazing. And more importantly, his experience in this sector. I've never worked in the voluntary sector on this type of level where we're actually running something. So for me, his experience, his knowledge, his just understanding of how this space works, and especially here in Leicester, that was absolutely key for me to get to where we are. We've got Jitendra Mistry, another I can't talk highly enough, in our community, in his community, and through all of our networks, he's very well known and very well respected. On a personal level, he's very, very passionate about what we're doing, and he's been supportive from day one. So he was the other charity, and our third founding trustee was a lady called Leela Keshavji, someone very, very special to all of us. Unfortunately, Sorry.
Yes, I did. I've just realised. Yes, that I had heard about. So I don't know if you want to mention a bit about that.
Yeah. Again, she was her history was in education. She's a well-known person around Leicester because of the restaurant they had, and she was amazing. And unfortunately, with everything that happened last year, we had to find another trustee because otherwise we can't operate. So now we've got Shivani Patel on board. She's a very young girl who knows Leicester well and very passionate about our cause. I know her on a personal level as well. She's my niece, and she's one of the reasons why I started this charity, because I was scared of the type of world that they're going to be growing up in. So for me, that was very important. And there was no replacing Leela. Leela was a whirlwind of her own. She was always on everything, very passionate. And when I mean passionate, I don't use that word lightly or in any understated manner. She was 100% down with what we're doing, and part of what Ekyam is going to be doing is we're going to have Leela's lessons, because she was a teacher in her past. One of the things that I discussed with her, and one of the things, as an organization, we've all taken responsibility for different areas. Kirit predominantly deals with the addictions, the mental health, the organ donation, and about mental health and wellness. Leela was dealing with education. I was dealing with gang violence, drugs, and that areas, because we all had our, not specialities, but expertise in certain areas. And with Leela's, hers was education, and she was a teacher in the past. And one thing that me and her frequently had conversations about was that young children nowadays, you can have 2 neighbors, one family work, one doesn't. No fault of the family that doesn't, maybe unfortunate circumstances, things like this COVID, for example, and someone's lost their job or something. We've got a lot of organizations out there. I'm not going to mention them by name because, I don't want to call anyone out per se, but I personally, I don't agree with charging for any type of learning or education, especially to those who are under 18. I believe if you're over 18 and you choose to pay for something, that's absolutely fine. But I do believe if education should always be free, personally. With the under 18s, the 2 families, one family, they've still got their jobs, or they're in a better position to be able to offer their children extra curricular activities or better studying. Now, these 2 sets of children, they're going to go to school tomorrow, and one's got a better education or a better understanding simply because of a financial means, simply just because of that. And so what we're going to do is everything that these organizations provide for that they pay, we're going to provide free on our websites, on our YouTube channels, and we're going to create the lessons, and they're going to be called Leela's Lessons. And that's something from from in memory of Leela and from Leela what she wanted, but also from Ekyam as a platform to give to everyone and say, we don't want anyone to have to pay for helping their children to learn or helping to notice if they might have a learning difficulty, or if they have got a learning difficulty, where do they find that extra support? What is that support that they're getting? How are they provided it? What are they learning? We're going to put that all online for absolutely free, and hopefully we can get everyone up to have access to whatever education they need.
That's a lovely, what a beautiful legacy for Leela. I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, I don't think you mentioned it, but Leela was heavily involved with Ekyam just as it was being set up, I believe, but suddenly passed away through a sudden health issue, very young, in the prime of her life. And everywhere that, I mean, I'd never actually known her, but I I can visualize her once when I went to the Moore restaurant, which is where she's from.
Yeah.
About our cause project with her husband, actually, and she was sat behind there. So I do recall that, but I never spoke to her at all. So, it's very sad, but a wonderful legacy that you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, if you did go to eat there, both her, Manoj again, both absolutely amazing people, both very supportive of Ekyam. But initially, I'd spoken to Leela about it, and when you see someone's eyes, the glow about, when someone's really passionate about something, and it was clear from as soon as I'd mentioned it, she knew that she wanted to be a part of it, and she used to let us use Moore restaurant as a meeting hub. This is all obviously before COVID had kicked in, and so we got the trustees together, and we were told, it's going to take you 2 to 3 years. It's not set up properly, and to get certification from Charities Commission now is very, very difficult. It's going to take you this long, and we managed to get it done within 4 months because of all the groundwork we've done, and yeah. So
this is key, isn't it? That have the right people with support and the expertise is hugely beneficial. And in a way, it's a lesson for larger organizations and institutions and those philanthropists who, prefer to feel safe with known names, bigger organizations where they're funding in, but actually it's the smaller ones that have more passion sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, but they've grown out of an individual's passion or experience, lived experience. So I totally agree with what you're saying there. But yeah, moving on then. So I mean, so what are your views about the needs of the youth and young people, in Leicester, particularly from the South Asian community, because we're talking about South Asian Heritage Month today. So, but also not just the South Asian, but the wider community. What do you think are the needs at the moment?
Yeah,
that we should be aware of?
I think what I'll do is kind of answer it backwards. I'll start with the wider community because I think fundamentally, anyone who looks at this logically, we've had crime for thousands of years. There's evidence, there's history of prisons being court systems and whatever. So we know that there's been crime. We know people have tried to deal with it. Family issues within the family, things like domestic abuse, and we're aware of these kind of issues. So generation after generation, we've known about things, but no one has been able to break this cycle. I think the society we live in now, the resources we have and the capabilities, especially with internet and social media, usually when social media is mentioned, it's usually to do with the negative side of what can occur on social media. However, to credit it, again, only people with bad intentions can put anything bad. Ultimately, it comes back to the individual. It's not social media spreading anything bad. It's the individual that's using social media. The platforms that we've got, the way that we can understand everything that's happened through generations, for example, rehabilitation and punishment within the justice system, and which you should use. Should a crime be punished, or should someone be given the chance to rehabilitate? Are there some crimes where that person doesn't deserve rehabilitation, or does, all these questions that have been asked? And I think we're in a position where through every generation, the problem just passed on to the next one. And it's time generations start breaking these traditional cycles and really make improvements. So in terms of what the youth need, and just going back to the original question, the wider community, and why there's a need for this within the youth, is because we've given them a world that is full of potholes. For another analogy, for want of better words, if they're driving down the road, we've not maintained that road at all. By now, they should be driving on probably a hovercraft or something, realistic, not even touching the road. We've got those capabilities. Instead, we're giving them roads with potholes in it. And that's what we're giving their lives at the moment. There's dangers everywhere. There's predicaments. There's manipulation. There's deception. And to live in the world that we live in now and still have all of this going on, and especially for those of us that can see and know that we should be stopping it, I think we've let them down. I think we've let them down. And so that's why they need a better world to inherit, the one we're leaving them behind. And when we focus down then onto the South Asian community, the rise in drugs, especially here in England, and to be fair, all around the world, again, now maybe the negative side of social media, where people in India, youth in India might be able to access what they think life is like here in England and America, and want to imitate that for whatever reason, because there's a sense of, maybe in the South Asian community, I can speak for Indians. I know there's a lot of other communities within the South Asian community, but it's very hard for me to discuss their cultural needs without actually living it. So from an Indian perspective, a Gujarati perspective, I can say that that sense of pride, I don't see it within me. I'm proud to say, I'm Gujarati, I'm Hindu, and whatever my beliefs are. I think with a lot of our people, and what I notice is that they're not proud to say that there's a cultural appropriation of other cultures, and we see it more here now, and especially because there was a generation of parents that had become slightly westernized, and then we had those attitudes of, I'm not going to parent, I'd rather be a friend, and things like this. So when you grow up in this type of parenting, for example, where they want to be your friends rather than your parent first, it leads to a generation of youth that then can be misguided easily, because ultimately we're not giving them some of the foundations that you need in life, the discipline, the manners, the respect, the understanding of and respect of different cultures as well. For example, with the Japanese, there's a lot of attention on how and why their academic studies start at about 7 or 8 years old. It's because for the first 7 or 8 years old, all they focus on is how to be a good person, the things like the manners, the respect, the discipline, and how to talk to elders, etc., etc. So all of this, they're grounded with that from the start. And I think if we start introducing some of the fundamental parts into our society here, there's nothing wrong with, people saying that, look, how can I be a better parent? I think people, sometimes are even fearful of asking the honest questions. And I think we do need to start touching those subjects. And especially in our South Asian community, I think we've definitely let them down, because the increase in drugs, in violence, the police stats say it all. we had practically a 0% prison population, and that's increasing year on year at the moment. So that's something we definitely need to keep an eye on, and it's increasing at a rapid rate in our youth. So that's just something for people to look at, research, and if they're interested, we're at ECYAM UK. They can always contact us, and we can discuss it.
Yeah. Well, great. I was just going to say, there's some amazing pictures that you've sent us, and we're just sharing them at the moment. But let's continue with the discussion as well in the background. So, I mean, what help can you give adults, and the advice about the youth culture in today's society? As
our main objective is to help 8 to 24-year-olds. However, part of that is helping their families. It's helping other community leaders, all types of organizations that are already set up. We speak to them and try and bridge that gap of communication about what the youth are experiencing and probably don't know how to articulate themselves, because again, if we all think back to when we were younger, we all thought we knew what was best for us at that time, and then 5 years later we always think back to ourselves, oh, I wish I knew this back then, or what was I thinking back then. What we all go through that, and we have to understand that it's time we start seeing every generation it's the same, and every generation as we get older, oh my God, what are the youth doing now? Look, we know what they're doing. We were doing the same. It might be different things, but ultimately the way that the brain's working is similar. They think they know what's best right now, the way that the world's going to go. But the difference is this time, they actually do, probably more than what a lot of adults give them credit for, because they're living this generation. We are, we had the millennials, we had the Generation X, and whatever they've called it, they've given these labels in the past. This is the social media generation, without a doubt, and they're the ones that are leading it ultimately, even though we're the ones in control of it to a certain extent. None of our generations have lived this before. So we don't know where this AI, all this artificial intelligence, biological warfare that, we've experienced coronavirus. I'm not saying that was biological warfare, by the way. What I mean is there's parallels. People can see this. And now these generations that are growing up, they can see it. They're talking about it. And not only that, they're being exposed to it on the internet, because a lot of us adults, we don't have any filter. We'll share and post anything online without caring what age group is on our timeline. We'll post about stuff that is not appropriate for children, really. We should let children be children, and we really need to focus back on that.
I thought what you just said before about social media, that social media is a neutral place to start with, but it is what we put in, and it's usually the negative. So those that have negative intentions will tarnish it's a bit like the analogy people use about the purity of a tub of water is completely ruined by just one drop of oil or color or whatever, dirt. And it's the same, that the more negative media comes into the social media platforms, the worse the impact on the young people who, like you said, are impressionable.
Yeah.
However much they may think that they know best what the culture is and what the in kind of fashion is. Ultimately, like you say, that we, relatively speaking, we all have the same processes, but it's the outer environment that is much more intense now than it's ever been before. And I think, how do you handle that dichotomy, or the
just going back to what your previous question is about advice to adults, very simple thing. If we all look back in our childhoods, because of the way technology was and everything, it wasn't feasible or really realistically possible, especially prior to the game console era, I would say as well. prior to the 90s, you couldn't really sit there and watch TV. Most channels were off air after a certain time. Certain channels would just play the CFAX stuff, and there wasn't the availability of all this social media, or well, entertainment, let's call it. It's not social media, it's entertainment now. Now we're going into a whole different arena, and especially the access to it, just to be able to pick up your phone and access whatever you want anytime you want. So there's no time for the mind to rest. There's no time for that peace that if we were to ask a child now, when do you rest, are they actually resting? They're not resting, they're recovering. There's a big difference. And a lot of doctors, a lot of lifestyle doctors that we speak to, again, this hasn't been recognized by the NHS or in an official capacity. So I can't really say with any gusto that, look, here's accreditation or here's a source. But I think if everyone just opens their eyes and just has a look, I think it's clear to see. And you speak to lifestyle doctors, or think about how you feel now and how you used to rest before, maybe, and now how you rest, because you probably are using a bit more and your brain's working a bit more. People can contact you. Before, if you went out for a walk, you could enjoy nature. Now you'd come home, back then you'd come home, you might have a voicemail if you were lucky to have one, or even before that, maybe ring 1471. Has anyone called? We might get the last number. And before that, if we missed a call, we missed a call. Hard luck, they'll call back whenever, that was life. But things were people were understanding of it, that I can now, if you don't answer your mobile, the pressure you get, certain things like this, and it's that constant having to be available, that your body, and
like you say, that young people, if they have had this whole culture of continuous social media communications and a lot of negative stuff, that they need to then work out their position on things, so that they disregard some of the stuff, and it's reliant on their resilience. And in a way, last year's Manavutsa was about resilience within the community, and now it's about empowerment this year. Dr. Indrani Lahiri, who is the founder of the Manavutsa, was just mentioning earlier that, with this year's sort of moving away from COVID now, we will have more people unemployed because, now that furlough is about to end. But one of the things that has happened is that part of that whole process is those young people who have had little experience of working under pressure in the context of, being able to at least have time off in the evenings. Everyone's required to answer emails as and when, and the consequences of that are going to build up. And, we know the mental health is going to be a pandemic. And as you and I are both on that South Asian Health Action Mental Health Ambassadors program, just for the audience, if anyone's interested, we are working on a World Health Organization accredited mental health ambassadors within the community by a wonderful, psychiatrist in Leicester, Dr. Dr. Nandini Chakrabarti. He's delivering these, and we're going to open them out. We've had a session on Manavutsa, of a closed session, just a few days ago, and we're going to build on that. But I think the youth, there'll be a specialist need for the youth in that respect, in my opinion. But also, just moving on. So, you mentioned about recovering as opposed to having a peaceful sleep. Those are very much issues about cause that we're very passionate about. But I'll mention that later when we're just about to end, about what cause is about. But it does relate very well. But what I was going to ask you was, so what are your plans? So what are your plans moving forward? Could you tell me a little bit about this NCS that you're doing? And can you tell listeners today how they can help your organization. And you know, I mean, I'll break this question up, but I'll just go through the whole question because I think it's quite comprehensive. So, what are your plans moving forward? What can listeners do to help your organization? And what can they do to get help if they need for their own young people in their family? And if it's a young person seeking help, what should they do? So I'll remind you of the little bits, but
Yeah.
you can start off with what your plans are and NCS. That would be good.
Okay, so like I said, over the next couple of years, we're just touching on what we said as before. We've got quite a few projects and stuff lined up, but with the NCS at the moment, what we're doing is NCS are supported by, or they run under LEBC here in Leicester. What they do is they take on 16, 17-year-olds who have just finished their GCSEs. And with that, what they do is local organizations, national organizations pitch to them about their projects, their campaigns. So what we do is we support them in either the work they're doing with any of their other campaigns, or they can promote one of the projects that we have. So this year, what we did is, because like I said, we're still in our infancy, what we did was a soft launch as a charity, because what we wanted to do was test our processes. There was no point officially launching, having people come through a door. Not that we've got a physical door at the moment either, but for, you know, as a phrase, if people came through our door and we're not in a position to help them, that is the worst case scenario. So to avoid that, what we did was we had a soft launch. We took on cases in various areas like mental health, gang violence, gang culture. We had a couple with addictions, and we took on a few cases and we tested our processes out. So some of the stuff we could deal with internally, some we signpost to organizations that we've partnered up with. But when we signpost, what's different about us is we still stay in touch with our service user. And I'll call them a service user because it could be for an addiction, it could be for anything. Like I said, the issues that our young people face nowadays. So with NCS specifically, our project this year, over this month that we're working with them, was to create an awareness of the issues that are important to them. So a lot of agencies, charities will go to them and say, fundraise for us, etc. And we didn't do any of that. All we simply said was, tell us about an issue that's either important to you as a team, or as a team, present me with a lot of issues that are important to all of you individually. And then you can either do interviews, you can do social media clips, you can have a podcast, you can maybe make a music track, or you can make a short 5-minute film production, a short film or something. So there was a lot of ways that they could project this message or express it. And what we said to them was, come back to us. So over the month of September, what we're going to be doing is looking at seeing what kind of content they're going to provide for us. And then hopefully, as we do our official launch, we'll use some of the content, because the most important thing about ECAM is it is youth-led. Although we're at the front of it at the moment, some of the projects that we've got coming up, like I said, what are the plans? What you asked there. We've got an independent youth council here in Leicester. That's going to consist of 13 to 21 members who discuss issues within the youth, and then they can relate back to us in a very simple format, rather than having 15 children coming to us, or youth, young adults, saying this is an issue, that's an issue. That we get them to discuss it, come up with solutions themselves, prepare them for real life solutions when they become part of the community themselves as they grow older. So it gives them a bit of experience, it gives them an idea of what the problems in the community are, and as peer-to-peer influencers, that's where we want them to be able to influence their peers and be better or role models than the ones that they currently have. Also got a parent focus group coming up. So what we want is, we've got the youth council and we've got a parent focus group. We're going to try and bridge that gap. So whatever issues the council are talking about is what we'll raise with the parent focus group, and then speak about it at a parent level, because there's obviously certain issues we may not want to discuss in front of youth. And I've explained this to them as well. I used to say that, look, when my parents had certain things to talk about, because I was a child, it was like, look, get out the room. This is none of your business. It's adult talk and all this. And I think we've lost some of that in our society, you know, having that separation of what a child should hear and not hear. So what we're having is the parent focus group, and we're going to bridge that communication and say, this is what we're getting back from the youth. These are the issues. How do we now respond to this, but in a positive manner? And so slowly, every time we deal with an issue, we're going to be bridging that communication and bring it close, and hopefully then at some point work in synchronization with each other. Then what we're having is, as a new concept, we're going to be the first social media charity, youth charity in the UK, or potentially in the world. We're creating a studio and a hub here in Leicester, hopefully consisting of about 40 individual rooms, where 10 of them are music rooms, 10 of them are podcast rooms, 10 of them are like short studios, small studios that they can convert, do short films in. So, you know, we're giving them a platform, we're creating a channel for them, everything, like I said, from the education. All of this is going to be delivered by the youth themselves, not just, it's not going to be a bunch of adults telling youth this is what you should be doing. If we knew what we were doing, we would have given them a better world. What we're going to do is teach the youth how to create a better world and hopefully appreciate it better than what our generation. And that's not to everyone. When I say this, you know, there's a lot of people in our generation who, like I said, have supported our networks, and we wouldn't be where we are without them. So I don't say that lightly, but ultimately, and I'm to blame for this, and a lot of us, we accept a lot of things in our networks, sometimes some people might go to a social place like a pub, for example. There's a well-known person there. He does a bit of bad things and we all know it. But when he comes in, oh, he's the big man, and everyone sees, the younger people see us respecting him. So when you want that kind of respect, you know, automatically we've glorified someone that then when we go home, oh, you don't want to be like him. But then the kids are like, when we're at the pub, you're like, you're praying to him practically, like, what's going on? So let's start delivering on that message. These people that are doing bad in our communities, call them out, let them know that, listen, this is not acceptable. And if you're going to do it, I'm not encouraging anything here, but I think when someone gets to the age of 25, if I've worked with someone from the age of 8 to 24, if at 25, 26, they decide to make bad choices, at that point, there has to be a part of me that then says, look, there's only so much I can help someone. I'm doing the best to prepare you, and the best for this community, this world, to prepare you to be a better person. But ultimately, if those lessons aren't being taken on, then that's when the society has created that system, the justice system, whatever it might be, that then deals with it in the way that they do. What I'm trying to do is prevent people entering that system in the first place, and hopefully create a better world going forward. So in terms of projects going forward,
that's a wonderful sort of concept and idea to put forward, that, you know, you are there for those 8 to 24-year-olds who need the help, you know, to maintain that good choices in their lives and learn and practice that. And, you know, these are the gaps in provision by the statutory agencies that you're meeting. So, you know, I take my hat off to you for, as a young person yourself, relative to me at least anyway, you know, you are doing some great work, and I appreciate, you know, you sharing this information, because I think a lot of people, hopefully, you know, today this is a live event, but of course it can be, it will be on the website, you know, in the future for people to catch up. And as your work moves on, I would love to hear more about it as well. But whilst you're talking about what you're doing with the NCS, in September, which is when you're doing that, I mean, we're still working, it's early stages. We're going to be hopefully delivering a live event. So a lot of our work is related to Goal 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. And in September, we're planning on a live event. It'd be fantastic that your outputs that you have from this whole thing can be showcased on a stage somewhere. Because we're going to be working and collaborating with a number of organizations from a grassroots level, and anybody listening who is from an organization that may want to collaborate with Manavutsa, with Cause, with Akium, please get in touch. You've got your the details coming through at the bottom, and finding us is now so easy with social media, so you can find us quite.
And sorry, you were saying about just as you said then about contact. You're saying about if a parent, if a teacher, if again we work with the court system before. Sometimes with the youth justice system, sometimes before a child is maybe sent to a youth offending institution or somewhere, maybe they get a last chance to work with us before something serious is put on their record. So in terms of getting in contact with us, you can use our link there. It's at Ekiam UK, or you can use ekiamuk@gmail.com. Our website is under construction at the moment. That will be part of the launch in September, is for our website as well. So there'll be referral forms on there. There'll be ways for us to contact us, whether you're an organization, a parent, or a youth. It's all anonymous unless you want to include your details, and depending on what you're referring or how you're referring it or who you're referring, more importantly, and what position you hold with them, then obviously our communication can be different. Sometimes if you're just worried about someone and you want to anonymously just say, look, you might want to reach out to someone. We're here to help anyone between the ages of 8 and 24. So anyone can reach out to us.
So just there's a question we've got here. So when do you expect the studio to come to life?
Okay, you mentioned funding earlier. That's something that I don't often talk about, because the way I set this charity up is we're going to earn our own money. We haven't applied for that much funding or asked for any help from anyone. The reason for that is one of the funders told me if they're going to give me money to do this, they need me to be BAME, which means if anyone from, if they're white, I have to turn them away. I don't want their money for that. I'm not going to do that. Another larger fund that a lot of people know about, which I can't really call out because there's something going on with them at the moment, but they were offering £1 million over 5 years, which was to help set us up. But believe it or not, they wanted me to let 20% of the youth that come to me slip through my net. That's never going to happen. I just turned it down straight away. In fact, I've to an extent not complained about it, but I'm in a process of making sure that is never the criteria for any type of funding, because that is absolutely unacceptable.
Well, I mean, let's hope that your discussions will change their approach rather than you having to walk away. So
we're self-funding at the moment with our YouTube channel, and once we start getting our shows out and everything, hopefully we'll get local business support to start branding things. We'll start things small until we've got the funding, but we're speaking to the council at the moment because they were made aware of this situation with the funding, and anyone who's telling me let 20% of the youth slip through the net, they shouldn't even be allowed to fund anyone. If they want a comparison, if they're saying right, and the reason they're saying that, their explanation, their justification for that, and I'm sorry if I sound a bit aggressive about it, but it really boils me to think that people have taken that funding. I actually know the organizations accepted the funding, so now it leads me to believe that, hang on, these organizations, they're getting people referred, but they're letting 20% slip through the net so that they can keep an eye on them and say, right, with the funding we have, this is what we did with the 80%, and look where the other 20% ended up. We never need to do that. Without us right now, we've already got the stats out there. That is the world without my help right now. You can compare my stats to theirs. We don't need to let anyone slip through a net. So, their logic is...
If it's any comfort, we are in the situation because that is exactly what's been happening for decades, and we are trying to change it. And I think the time is right for us to make change happen.
Yeah.
And I love the way that you talk. In a way, Akyam and in the spirit of Mahatma Gandhi, you seem to be saying, "Be the change you want to see." That's what
Yeah.
you've just summed up in there. So before
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're coming towards the end of our session. I know that you've been currently going through the CAUSE's Good Practice Example, the Peace Education Program workshop series. So why did you decide to join the sessions, and what is your experience so far, and how would you see them benefit young and older people?
I um I just, for me personally, it's practicing what you preach. And I always believe in what I teach the youth basically is that you're always going to learn, regardless of what age you get to. And when I was offered this opportunity to take part in this, for me, it's relevant. First of all, it goes without saying, it's actually relevant to what I do, but also it gives me a better personal understanding. Although I'm aware of certain subjects, although we relate to certain things, this is a bit more of a deep dive into that subject, and also the network it introduces you to. There was a lot of benefits to it, and anyone else who would consider something like that, I would say is definitely worth your time. And for the time it is, for once a week or something, what you learn, what I get from it, and what I can take back is unbelievable. Because then, although I'm just taking a seed from the session, what I managed to give to the children are the fruits of that tree that's grown then. So hopefully, lessons like this, I love to learn anyway. So anything that I get a chance from, and that's what I try and instill with the youth that we work with. One of the things that they, funnily enough, one of the things that they really do love, when I break it down to a simple thing, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to call like anyone anything here, so not names, but as an analogy, if you're dumb, you can never pretend to act clever. But if you're clever, you can pretend to act dumb when you need to. So it's better to be clever, and you can be both. If you're dumb, you'll never be able to act clever, no matter how much you try, because it's the materials not there. So, and as soon as I say that to them, they look for it. Yeah, actually, that makes sense. And then, because believe it or not, there's a bit of a fashion nowadays to be a bit dumb, be a bit bimbo-y, be a bit this and that, and people think it's kind of cool. She's airhead or he's an air. It's not cool at all. Sharpen yourselves up. You've got to, in this world that we're living in, you need to have something.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. I think we're about to come to close the session. But before we do, you have an opportunity. So what kind of support do you expect from local charities, and how can we support you in this great initiative?
I don't expect any support, but I would like to get support from any charities or organizations that are passionate about what we do, first of all. But even if there's a connection there, room for collaboration, like I said, sometimes even if you're an organization that's completely unconnected to us, maybe through your charity, your organization, or your business, whatever it might be, we might find an opportunity for one of the young people that we work with. Like I said, a lot of them are absolutely wonderful to work with, so we try and find opportunities for them. So that would be great, to just have a local connection and just make everyone work together. And if everyone's on the same wavelength, we can make strides a lot quicker. And how can we support you in this great initiative? Again, I'm very, just through pride and whatever, we don't ask for funds or donations or anything, but if anyone really wants to support us, they can always contact us, and people can support us in many ways. We need volunteers. We need people to help set up the parent focus group. We need volunteers to help work with the children themselves. It really just depends on what that person. We've got opportunities for everyone in every part of our organization at the moment. Like I said, we're in our infancy, so we're training people to be mental health ambassadors. We're training people to go on courses and take the relevant courses to be able to, yeah. So we've got lots of training available for people who want to join in and take a bit more of a proactive role. We've got, I mean, if there's a rich philanthropist out there that really just wants to help us with certain things, we're all about transparency. So we'd work with them on a personal level and say, look, you don't need to give us the money. You do it direct. This is what we want to aim together. You do it direct. It doesn't need to come to us. And that way, you know, we like transparency, and what we want to is start building trustworthy relationships. We've seen a lot of organizations. I won't go too much because I know you mentioned the time, but we've seen a lot with other organizations. We're just very transparent. So, yeah.
I think you have a wonderful blueprint for assisting the statutory agencies in such a massive way. And I think it's worth mentioning also, I know you mentioned that NCS, you mentioned this to me before, but you're actually delivering it at the De Montfort University itself. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's give De Montfort University a bit of a plug there. I think it's a great initiative that they are supporting as well. And perhaps they, you know, after they hear what you've just said for this 1 hour, they may have opportunities that they can then open doors for you as well. So,
I mean, through one way or another, ultimately, if we're working with 8 to 24-year-olds, somewhere along the line, the education system, everyone will either hear about us or will end up collaborating or working with them. And De Montfort Uni, I know you said they do amazing work, and hopefully at some point we do get that chance to really connect and see how we can help each other. So they're going to have a lot of students there that need our support potentially, and you know, there's a lot that we can do with each other. So yeah,
I think we answered the question even before it came up. You're working with so we won't go through that one again. But
I think there was a couple in the comments they were saying, or
so what were the main challenges for the South Asian youth during the pandemic? Yeah, that's a good one.
From what we found, increases in domestic violence, domestic abuse, either being the victim or just being exposed to it within the household. I would say connecting with nature was massive for a lot of our youth. They were struggling with where to go, where's safe to go, how they can go, because some parents are working from home, so they can't leave the home and take, because obviously the youth are at home as well sometimes because of school. So we're getting a lot of issues like this. But I would say the main one was around the domestic abuse and violence. That was it just increased, and we just suddenly just quite a few cases. And I can't say I was surprised, but at the same time I was shocked. Like, it's just sad to see, you know, and I would say our youth deserve a lot better than that, regardless of demographic or anything. But especially in these cases, when you mentioned South Asian there, for me, the South Asian cases that we've dealt with the youth, and I mentioned it earlier in our chat as well, I was saying domestic abuse and domestic violence, for me, it's not one I expected to deal with to this level or into this number of cases. But
I think, I mean, I think that is coming to many people's attention at the moment. I mean, COS held an event with the police, the chief constable and the chief exec of the NHS just recently, and in fact we're just organizing a follow-up about how we can you know, put in support services that exist, you know. So yeah.
And also on a not a lighter note, but on a more casual type of, what a lot of them and the feeling at the moment is that they're feeling frustrated being at home. They're starting to realize, I'm just stuck in front of my device all the time, and a lot of them are looking for ways to connect with nature, ways to go out, and these football teams. And I think a lot of, and again, this is a message to any parents, any people in the community out there. I think that question we were asked about, how can we support, you know, as parents, as community groups, even if it's not through ECIAM, set up events, sports days, or something where the children can get out, whether it's whatever group you're involved in. If you're not involved with the group, by all means, come to Ekiam UK. We would love to help host these events and do that with you, and set up tournaments or somewhere where people can go outside and play music, play football, anything, but get people active, get people involved. And we've not got enough activities at the moment for the youth. They're really struggling, and they're being accused of a lot of things when they're going out. Apparently they're the serial spreaders of all this coronavirus. Look, they've been given the freedom, they're sticking to the rules. So if that's the rules, let's work within the rules, and if it changes, we'll adapt again. That's the way life is. The blame game is not going to, and blaming the youth,
that's actually antagonizing the whole situation anyway. So
again, we're the ones that create the rules for them. We're saying that, look, you have to socialize like this, you have to. They're doing that, and then we say, oh, they're, it's catch-22.
Well, I mean, I think from what you're planning and what you've achieved so far, Ekiam is going places, and I sincerely hope that you get the platform and the bounce that you need in getting the studios and the services together, and you get the statutory agencies behind you, and I think that's.
I mean, if anyone's got a building out there that can be used as a hub or a studio, and they think, there's something we can do for a way for us to use that building, get in touch with us, and we'll definitely be on that.
I would suggest you contact the city mayor, because just very recently there was a project or an idea where somebody requested some space, and they were looking at offering, because there's so much space in the middle of town, looking at alternative uses, temporary uses. So even if you have it as a temporary measure, rent-free, that's the way to go, isn't it? So thank you so much for your time, and it was very interesting and very, very powerful, all the things that you've said today. And thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best, and I'm sure that we'll be collaborating as part of COS. Thank you very much.
Definitely. And thank you for all the help and support, giving us this platform. Thank you to Dr. Indrani. I know she's not come online right now, but thank you to her. She's provided a lot of support and a lot of useful information as well. And Craig behind the scenes there as well. Thank you to everyone. And thank you for giving me this platform. At Ekiam UK.
Yeah, and thank you from me to Craig as well. I'm Indrani Lahiri. Thanks for your help in the background. It was great, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.